why are we such a target? We're the ultimate target, darling. We're on the hot seat. We're happening.
There are today what I've seen as gender extremists. There are people very, very busily defending their gender and defining themselves by their gender. The white male heterosexual patriarchal dominant ideology, power structure is in fact, sure, they are definitely have a lot invested in being men. On the other side, there are extremists who are as invested in being women. To both sides, I present a threat.
Okay, when I was a very young dyke, when I was maybe 18, I subscribed to a really simplistic kind of feminism. And I think that part of why I really hated transsexuals is because I'd never met anyone who was a transsexual. I felt really hassled for being a visible lesbian. And it's always easy to vent some of that frustration by singling out another group that's more marginalized and dumping on them. That was a lot of it. And it took me a long time to educate myself enough to get out from under that, because I recognized it ultimately as a form of bigotry.
Why they have such a problem with it? I think part of it is fascination. I don't necessarily think it's always hostile. I think part of it is the way they're socialized. Some people just aren't raised right, and that is a fact.
People just go off the deep end. I mean, I've been attacked, physically attacked, just because I looked different or because they couldn't tell what sex I was.
You will get a lot of flack, and you will have to fight tooth and nail just to get an apartment, just to pay your rent, just to get people to hire you.
You're not like everyone else. There's a terrible price to pay. I think being different is very frightening because the penalty is enormous. You face more risk of violence when you go out on the street. You face job discrimination. You face all kinds of other discrimination. You also face the possibility of being isolated because other people are frightened and do not understand what you're about. And they punish you for that. They punish you for challenging them. They punish you for making them think.
You can't put somebody in a box. You can't make somebody be something that they're not. It kills them.
You know, people get into projecting me in this real underground, dark, Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, drug-induced world, which I did wade through for many years. Basically, but see, the thing was, I wasn't a tourist there. I was trapped there. And a lot of people are tourists in that underground. Like, maybe they're kind of like trust fund type kids that like want, and those are the people that really want to keep me in that image. They're like, we don't want to see you being normal, adjusted, yuppie type woman. We want to see you strung out. We want to see you talking about ranting and raving against society.
In fact, I do believe that gender is a divisive social construct. I don't think it's useful anymore. The only use that I personally see and have been able to see for having a bipolar gender system is to give half the population another half to oppress. What other use could it have?
Gender is not the issue, it is the battlefield or the playground. The issue is us versus them. Any us versus any.
The whole world is divided into good versus evil, white versus black, savage versus civilized, heterosexual versus homosexual, men versus women. Whereas I think a lot of societies, and this is especially true of Native American societies, they viewed life as much more complex, more like a continuum instead of just either or opposites.
When I talk about the need for more than two genders, I'm really not talking about, well, there's a third gender and that's transsexual, and a fourth gender and that's lesbian, and a fifth gender and that's drag queen, and a sixth gender and that's she-male, and a seventh gender and on and on and on. That's just the same thing, only more of it, right? I'm not talking so much about that. What I'm against, I think, is a rigidity of gender. I don't think anything's really that rigid in nature or in the world. I haven't seen anything that rigid. And I think it would be more fun if gender as a concept were fluid.
I stayed with this friend of mine for Christmas in L.A., and he had this 12-year-old brother. And he came in to me one day, and he goes, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And I go, "Well, you know, it just really depends on my mood." He goes, "Well, do you have a pussy?" I said, "Everyone has a pussy. It's just that some people discover it and some people don't." He's like,
I like the way men look together and women look together. So when we play with the strap on, it's usually
Usually both have them on.
usually both have them on.
He taught me how to wear it down my leg. So after that, yes, I passed very convincingly.
So are you lefty or righty?
Righty.
Well, actually, my gender changes every few minutes. I can change this into being real butch. Depends on the weather.
and the next day he came in and he goes, "So what are you today? A girl, a boy, or a burl?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I haven't gotten dressed yet."
We're just starting to see that gender is likewise a fluid concept, and that society puts all these conformist pressures on people to be either this or that. But if you don't have those kinds of pressures, then you are going to see more fluidity.
I think if gender has any future, it's in its value to titillate people, not to determine what they do for a living or how much money they make.
Because I think everybody is constructing their gender day to day according to a social norm anyway.
A lot of it has to do with sexual stereotypes. I don't feel comfortable being a man with all of the rules that go along with it. There's a lot of, society has a lot of gender rules and regulations.
I think that's a good point that she made in her play when she said, you know, when we're talking about gender, why can't we count higher than 2?
A man has a penis.
I'm constructing myself to be fluidly gendered now.
A woman has no penis.
When someone says the cause of transsexualism is fill in the blank, people aren't defining transsexual. What's a transsexual? If it's someone with gender dysphoria, who doesn't have that? If you're not totally happy with your prescribed gender role as a woman, that's gender dysphoria. Are you a transsexual? Where do we draw the line? Because I go ahead and have genital conversion surgery, is that a transsexual? I know a lot of transsexuals who don't want to have that. Transsexuality, like man, like woman, is a matter of degree.
People like that were put here on the earth to teach us something, to teach us about an appreciation for diversity, an appreciation for the contributions that different people can make when they do differ. I had an experience one time I was interviewing an elderly man on the Crow Reservation in Montana, and he said, our society doesn't waste people the way white society does. Everyone has their contribution, everyone has their gift.
It's like, you know, you can only whine and say, oh, well, no one likes me and people call me names. And, you know, that doesn't get you too far. What you do is you just put on a show, you write a play, you be incredible.
As to being a man or a woman, must I be one or the other? Must you? Do you know what one is or the other?
I think Kate's work does take us somewhere. It takes us to a place where we can start to imagine the strangeness of our own systems and begin to figure out how we could think about our own lives differently.
I think another reason why people are intimidated by transsexuality and don't really want it to enter the discourse is because, in fact, it has explosive potential to alter our dual-gender, polarized system. And as a feminist, this makes really good sense to me.
My transgenderism is my particular death and rebirth. You know, I got a little particular glimpse of the truth, my own little particular glimpse, you know, and I put that together with yours, and maybe we'll have a bigger glimpse of the truth. You know, we put that together with yours, and we'll have a little bit bigger glimpse, and it goes on like that.
We're going to go home tonight, you and I. And before we fall asleep, we're going to say, thank heavens, at least I'm a man. Thank heavens, at least I'm a woman. They can't say that. But you say all of this has left you a bit unsettled. You say you need some help. I'll say I've got it for you in the pink and blue box. You just come see me tonight after the show. Thank you so much for coming this evening.